The bedroom drawer had been waiting for me longer than I realized. Every anniversary for 46 years, I opened it to find a small, handwritten gift from my wife, Eleanor. A letter, a photograph, a carved wooden token, once even a seashell she'd kept since the summer we met. But on what should have been our 47th anniversary, I pulled the drawer open and found nothing except neatly folded linen and the faint scent of cedar. 3 hours later, an old jeweler looked me in the eye and quietly said, "Sam, your wife bought one last anniversary gift before she passed away. She never came back for it. If you've ever wondered whether love can still surprise us after goodbye, stay with me." I stood there with my hand resting on the brass drawer pull, unable to convince myself to close it. It wasn't the missing gift that unsettled me. It was the broken rhythm. Eleanor believed traditions mattered because they carried people through seasons when emotions couldn't. Even during the years I spent weeks away with the Coast Guard maintaining electrical systems along the Atlantic, she'd always found a way to make sure an anniversary surprise waited inside that same drawer before I came home. After she died 6 months earlier, I assumed that tradition had simply reached its natural end. My daughter, Laura, found me still standing in our bedroom doorway. "Dad?" I looked back. The drawer's empty. She stepped beside me, glanced inside, then gently squeezed my shoulder. "It was always Mom who filled it." "I know." Her voice stayed soft. "Maybe this year is different." I nodded because it seemed like the reasonable answer. Laura wasn't being dismissive. She had watched her mother battle illness for nearly 2 years. She had organized appointments, sorted medications, and helped me through funeral arrangements. She believed grief was making ordinary moments feel mysterious. Part of me wanted to believe that too. That afternoon, I drove into town carrying Eleanor's wedding ring, not because I intended to sell it, but because Harold Green, our longtime jeweler, had offered months earlier to inspect the setting whenever I felt ready. Harold had known us almost as long as we'd known each other. He examined the ring under a bright lamp before looking toward the framed calendar behind his workbench. "You came on your anniversary." "I guess I did." He hesitated. Then he removed his glasses. "Sam, there's something I've wondered about since Eleanor passed." The room suddenly felt much quieter. A few weeks before she died, she ordered another anniversary gift. I stared at him. "Another one?" He nodded slowly. "She insisted it had to be finished before today's date." My throat tightened. "I never picked anything up." "I know." Harold reached beneath the counter and opened an old ledger. The payment was completed. The order was finished. But Eleanor never returned. He slid a yellowed receipt across the glass display case. At the bottom, in Eleanor's unmistakable handwriting, were 6 simple words. "Don't put this in the drawer." I had spent 46 anniversaries believing I understood my wife's traditions. For the first time, I wasn't sure I had ever understood them at all. I turned the receipt over twice before accepting that there wasn't another page hiding beneath it. Eleanor had written only those 6 words, and somehow they unsettled me more than if she had filled the paper with instructions. "Don't put this in the drawer." For 46 years, that drawer had been sacred ground between us. Whenever I came home from Coast Guard assignments covered in engine grease or smelling like salt water and electrical insulation, I always opened it before unpacking my sea bag. Eleanor loved pretending she hadn't left anything there. Then I'd find a folded letter or a tiny wrapped package, and she'd stand in the doorway, trying not to smile while I thanked her all over again. Breaking that tradition wasn't something she would do without a reason. "Can I keep the receipt?" I asked Harold. "It's yours." He reached beneath the counter again and removed a thin manila envelope. "I almost forgot. Eleanor left this with the repair ticket." Inside rested a carbon copy stamped by his workshop. Customer item, walnut keepsake box. Repair completed. No description, no photograph, no pickup signature. Just another date from 3 weeks before Eleanor died. I frowned. We never owned a walnut jewelry box. Harold rubbed his chin. "I don't believe it was jewelry. What do you remember?" He closed his eyes for a moment. "She said it had sentimental value, more important than anything inside it." That sounded exactly like Eleanor. She could make an old grocery list feel valuable if it reminded her of a particular afternoon. Driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about walnut. Our bedroom furniture was maple. Our dining table was oak. My workshop shelves were pine because pine was practical. Walnut. Walnut reminded me of something I'd built years ago. When I pulled into the driveway, Laura was waiting on the porch with 2 cups of coffee. "Harold told you something." "He did." I handed her both papers. She read quietly before looking up. "Dad, maybe Mom bought something and changed her mind." "Maybe. Or maybe she wanted to surprise you, but got sick before she could finish." "That's possible too." She studied my face. "You don't believe either explanation." "No. What do you believe?" I looked toward the bedroom window. "I think your mother planned too carefully to leave unfinished business." Laura sighed. "I miss her too." "I know. But sometimes there isn't another mystery." Her words were gentle, not dismissive, and that made them harder to argue with. After she left, I walked into my workshop behind the house. Rows of hand tools lined the walls exactly where I'd kept them since retirement. Building furniture had become my way of slowing time after decades spent repairing electrical systems aboard Coast Guard cutters. My hands still remembered measurements better than my memory remembered birthdays. I stood in front of an old notebook where I recorded every woodworking project I'd ever completed. Cabinets, bookshelves, rocking chairs, hope chests. Then I stopped turning pages. 40 years earlier. One entry. No customer name, no price. Only 2 words written in Eleanor's handwriting instead of mine. Keep forever. Beside those words, I'd sketched a small walnut box. I had absolutely no memory of building it, but Eleanor clearly wanted to make sure neither of us ever forgot it. That notebook stayed open on my workbench long after the evening sun disappeared behind the maple trees. I traced the tiny sketch of the walnut box with one finger, trying to force the memory back into focus. I could remember building rocking chairs for Laura when she was little. I remembered restoring church pews after retirement and repairing neighbors' porch swings. But the walnut box, the one Eleanor had labeled Keep Forever, had slipped completely out of my mind. The next morning, I called Harold. "Do you remember what was inside that box?" I asked. There was a long pause. I never saw inside it. But I do remember Eleanor bringing it here once. For repairs? No, for new hinges. That caught my attention. New hinges? She wanted the lid to open more smoothly. When was that? He shuffled papers. About 8 years ago. So the repair ticket wasn't for the first visit. I don't believe so. Another piece moved into place. Whatever Eleanor had hidden wasn't something she had prepared only after becoming ill. She'd been quietly maintaining that walnut box for years. Laura stopped by that afternoon carrying groceries. I brought dinner. You didn't have to. I know. She noticed the notebook spread across my kitchen table. You've been looking through old projects. I found something. I showed her the sketch. She smiled politely. I've never seen that box. Neither have I. Dad. She sat across from me. What if you're trying to remember something that simply isn't important anymore? I almost agreed. Instead, I folded the notebook closed. Maybe you're right. The words surprised both of us. After dinner, I helped her carry empty grocery bags to the car. I hugged my grandchildren before they drove away and promised I'd visit the following weekend. Then I did something Laura probably interpreted as acceptance. I stopped talking about the missing gift. For 2 full days, I never mentioned Eleanor's note. I mowed the lawn, volunteered at the Veterans Community Workshop, finished repairing a neighbor's broken cabinet door. Anyone watching would have assumed I'd finally accepted that grief had created questions where none existed. That assumption was useful. Because during those same 2 days, I quietly searched every shelf in my workshop. On the 3rd afternoon, I found an old Coast Guard storage crate tucked beneath a stack of lumber. Inside rested project templates I'd kept from decades of woodworking. Near the bottom lay a folded sheet of tracing paper. When I opened it, my own handwriting covered the page. Walnut keepsake box. Triple lock interior. Hidden compartment beneath removable tray. I frowned. Triple lock? I had never built furniture that complicated unless someone specifically requested it. At the bottom of the drawing, Eleanor had written another note. If Sam ever finds this plan before the right anniversary, smile and hide it again. I laughed for the first time in months. Even now she was somehow one step ahead of me. Taped to the back of the drawing was a tiny brass key no larger than my thumb. No label, no explanation. Only a narrow blue ribbon tied through the keyring. As I turned it over in my hand, my phone rang. Harold's voice sounded unusually excited. Sam, I remembered something else. Eleanor didn't say the walnut box was the gift. What do you mean? The box was only meant to protect it. I looked down at the little brass key resting in my palm. Whatever Eleanor had truly left behind, I had just found the first way to reach it. I carried the little brass key into the house as though it might break if I closed my hand too tightly around it. Eleanor always said the smallest objects carried the heaviest memories. Looking at the faded blue ribbon tied through the keyring, I realized she'd reused the same ribbon she wrapped around my anniversary letters every year. I had seen it dozens of times without ever noticing. It was always identical. Nothing Eleanor did by accident lasted 46 years. I spread the tracing paper across the dining room table beside Harold's repair ticket and the original receipt. For the first time, the clues began fitting together instead of competing with one another. The walnut box. The hidden compartment. The upgraded hinges. The instruction not to place the final gift inside the bedroom drawer. Whatever Eleanor wanted me to find, she had been protecting it for decades rather than months. Laura stopped by that evening with my grandchildren after Ben's baseball practice. Emma wandered into the dining room before anyone could stop her. "Grandpa," she said, pointing at the tiny brass key, "I've seen one like that." Laura smiled. "Honey, I don't think you have." Emma frowned. "No, Grandma showed me." The room became perfectly still. "When?" I asked gently. "A long time ago. She said tiny keys are never for big doors." Laura looked at me apologetically. "She's probably mixing memories together." But Emma shook her head. "Grandma let me hold it. She told me, one day your grandpa will remember what he built with his hands instead of what he bought with his money." I couldn't breathe for a second. Those words sounded exactly like Eleanor. Not sentimental. Practical. Quiet. Laura slowly sat down across from me. "She never told me that. I don't think she was supposed to." After the children went outside, Laura picked up the tracing paper. "Dad, look here." Near the bottom corner of the blueprint, almost hidden beneath one of my pencil measurements, someone had written 3 tiny initials: A, B, C. "They aren't yours," she said. "No, they're Mom's." Then she smiled faintly. "No, they're addresses." I looked again. Not initials, cabinet labels. In my workshop, every storage cabinet had once been marked with painted letters. Cabinet A, Cabinet B, Cabinet C. Most of those cabinets were gone now after several remodels, except one. Cabinet C still stood against the far wall beneath an old Coast Guard signal flag Eleanor insisted I never throw away. We hurried across the backyard. The cabinet door groaned as I opened it. Paint cans, old clamps, sandpaper. Nothing unusual. Laura started helping me empty every shelf while I measured the cabinet walls with my fingertips, the same way I used to inspect hidden electrical access panels aboard cutters. Good craftsmanship always leaves tiny clues. Halfway down the left side, my knuckles struck a dull sound instead of solid wood. I stopped. There. A thin panel slid backward with almost no effort. Inside rested the walnut keepsake box. It wasn't much larger than a family Bible. The fresh brass hinges Harold remembered gleamed softly beneath years of dust. For several seconds, neither of us touched it. Laura whispered first. "She hid it in something you built." I nodded. So I'd only find it after remembering how. With careful hands, I inserted the little brass key. The lock clicked. The lid opened only halfway before stopping. A second lock still held it closed. Resting inside the narrow opening was another blue ribbon, and beneath it, a second brass key. For a long moment, neither Laura nor I reached for the second key. The walnut box sat on my old workbench exactly where I must have assembled it 40 years earlier, its polished surface reflecting the warm light above us. Eleanor always believed some moments deserved silence before words. I finally understood why. "You should open it," Laura whispered. "I don't think I'm supposed to." She looked confused. "You built it." "I built the box." I gently lifted the blue ribbon resting inside the narrow opening. "But your mother designed the journey." Tucked beneath the ribbon lay a folded note written in Eleanor's careful script. "Sam, if you're holding the second key too early, close the box and wait. If Laura is standing beside you, then you've remembered the important part." Laura covered her mouth. She knew. She hoped. Those were different things. Eleanor had never tried to predict the future. She simply prepared people for it. I unlocked the second mechanism. This time the lid opened completely. There was no expensive jewelry, no hidden money, no rare heirloom. Only 3 small cedar envelopes tied together with blue ribbon and resting beside another tiny brass key. Each envelope carried a name. Samuel, Laura. For the children. My hand instinctively reached for the envelope with my name. Instead, I stopped. For 46 anniversaries, Eleanor had always handed me my gift first. This anniversary felt different. "Laura," I said quietly, "this one belongs to you." She stared at me. "No. It has your name. So did every birthday present Mom ever wrapped for me." She smiled sadly. "And she always made you open yours first." We laughed together for the first time since Eleanor's funeral. It wasn't a loud laugh, just enough to remind us grief hadn't erased joy forever. I opened my envelope. Inside rested a single handwritten page. "My dearest Sam, you spent your life repairing things that carried strangers safely home. Then you came home and quietly repaired everything else without anyone asking. If you're reading this, then you probably believe the missing anniversary gift belongs to you. It doesn't. Your gift was every anniversary before this one. The last gift belongs to the family we built together." The letter slipped slightly in my hands. 46 years. She had been preparing me for this sentence without my realizing it. Laura opened her envelope. Tears filled her eyes almost immediately. "My darling girl," she read softly. "One day your father will try to protect these memories by keeping them to himself. Please remind him that love hidden away becomes history, but love shared becomes inheritance." Neither of us spoke for nearly a minute. Then Laura looked toward the third envelope. "The children." I nodded. "We leave that one sealed. Until they're old enough to understand why their grandmother changed a 46-year tradition." Laura carefully retied the blue ribbon around all 3 envelopes. Then she noticed something neither of us had seen. The tiny brass key lying beside them wasn't shaped like the first 2. It carried a small engraved number. 46. Beneath it rested one final folded card. "The last key doesn't open this box. It opens the anniversary you haven't celebrated yet." I turned the mysterious key over slowly in my palm. For the first time since Eleanor died, I realized I hadn't been searching for one missing anniversary gift. I'd been walking through the first steps of one final anniversary she had planned for all of us together. For the next several days, the walnut keepsake box remained exactly where Eleanor had intended it to remain, closed. I returned the envelopes to their places, locked the lid, and carried the box into the bedroom instead of leaving it in the workshop. I set it on the dresser beneath the framed photograph from our 25th anniversary, the one where Eleanor was laughing because the wind had stolen my hat before the camera clicked. Every morning, I looked at the brass key engraved with 46. Every evening, I asked myself the same question. What anniversary hadn't we celebrated yet? The answer refused to come. A week later, Laura called. The realtor wants to meet Friday. I had almost forgotten. Months before, we had agreed to discuss whether I should keep the family house or move somewhere smaller. After Eleanor died, maintaining the property alone had become more difficult than either of us wanted to admit. I'll be there, I said. The meeting lasted less than an hour. The realtor walked through each room making notes while explaining current market values. She was kind, respectful, and practical. Then she reached the master bedroom. Most buyers prefer empty furniture, she said. If there are keepsakes you want to preserve, I'd recommend packing them now. She pointed toward the walnut box. Especially that one. I'll take care of it, I replied. After she left, I carried the box downstairs. Laura watched me wrap it carefully in one of Eleanor's old quilts. You aren't thinking of putting it in storage, are you? No. Then why pack it? I smiled. Because your mother never wanted important things protected from people. She wanted them protected for people. Laura nodded slowly. She understood the difference now. That evening, Ben wandered into the living room while I was placing the wrapped box inside an old cedar chest. Grandpa? Yes? Mom says that's Grandma's treasure. In a way. Is there pirate gold inside? I laughed. No. He looked disappointed. So it's just papers? Children have a remarkable way of asking questions adults spend years avoiding. I considered answering. Instead, I knelt beside him. When your grandmother gave someone a gift, what do you remember most? He shrugged. She always watched us open it. Why? Because... He thought for a moment. She liked seeing our faces. Exactly. The gift had never been the object. The gift was always the moment. That realization struck me so suddenly I had to sit down. The key didn't open another box. It opened another anniversary. An anniversary required people, not possessions. I hurried upstairs and opened the walnut box again. Beneath the envelopes, I noticed something I had overlooked before. The wooden tray inside wasn't fixed. It lifted free with almost no effort. Hidden underneath lay a neatly folded sheet of stationery. Only one sentence appeared on the front. Do not use the final key until everyone you love is in the same room. There was no lock attached to the paper. No keyhole anywhere inside the box. The brass key belonged somewhere else entirely. I turned it over again. For the first time, I noticed tiny engraved letters beside the number. DR, not initials. A location. Bedroom. Drawer. I hurried upstairs. Laura followed close behind. The familiar anniversary drawer slid open exactly as it always had. Empty. Until I removed it completely. Taped beneath the wooden base, hidden where no one would ever look during ordinary use, waited a tiny brass lock. The number stamped into it matched the number on the key perfectly. I looked at Laura. We're still missing someone. She already knew. The children. I closed the drawer again. Whatever Eleanor wanted us to discover next. She wanted 3 generations standing together before it was revealed. Saturday afternoon arrived with the kind of clear autumn sky Eleanor always loved. She used to say sunshine in October felt earned, as though summer had decided to leave one last gift before winter took over. Laura brought Ben and Emma just after lunch. We ate together, laughed over stories the children had heard a dozen times, and for the first time since the funeral, the house sounded like a family home instead of a museum of memories. No one mentioned the walnut box. No one mentioned the hidden lock. We simply waited until everyone had finished eating. Then I stood. I think your grandmother has one more anniversary planned. Ben's eyes widened immediately. Today? I believe so. Emma reached for my hand before we walked upstairs. Laura carried the walnut keepsake box. Together we entered the bedroom where 47 anniversaries had quietly begun and ended. The old dresser stood exactly where it always had. I removed the drawer completely and turned it upside down. The tiny brass lock still waited beneath the wooden base. For a moment, I simply rested my hand against the smooth oak. I built this dresser, I said softly. Laura smiled. I remember. But your mother designed what mattered. I inserted the brass key marked 46. It turned with almost no resistance. There was a gentle click. Nothing dramatic happened. No hidden compartment sprang open. Instead, a narrow wooden panel slid free into my hand. Behind it rested a single leather portfolio wrapped in faded blue ribbon. On top lay one final envelope. Across the front, Eleanor had written, "Open together." Laura looked at me. You do it. No. I shook my head. We all do. 4 hands unfolded the envelope. Inside was one letter. My beautiful family. If you have reached this page, then you already know my greatest secret. The missing anniversary gift was never hidden from Sam. It was hidden for all of you. Love grows smaller when it belongs to one person. It grows larger when every generation carries a piece of it. Ben looked up. Grandma wrote this? She did. Emma leaned against Laura while I continued reading. Inside the leather portfolio are 46 anniversary letters. One for every year of our marriage. They were never meant to stay in a box. Read one together every anniversary, then write your own letter before putting it back. One day, Ben and Emma will add theirs. Someday their children will do the same. If that happens, then our marriage will never really end. It will simply keep welcoming new writers. No one spoke. I untied the ribbon around the leather portfolio. Inside rested 46 handwritten letters arranged by year. The first was dated only 3 months after our wedding. The last had been written from Eleanor's hospital room only weeks before she died. Tucked beside them was something I hadn't expected. A small digital recorder. Laura pressed the play button. For several seconds, only silence filled the room. Then Eleanor's familiar voice gently broke it. Hello, my loves. Every person in the room froze. If you're hearing this, then Sam finally solved the puzzle. I laughed through tears. I knew you would. Ben smiled because hearing Grandma's voice somehow made death feel less frightening. Eleanor continued. Sam, thank you for building every box I ever needed. You never realized the strongest one wasn't made of walnut. It was this family. I looked around the room. Laura crying quietly. Emma holding the first anniversary letter as though it were fragile treasure. Ben standing a little taller than he had an hour earlier. And suddenly I understood. The final anniversary gift had never been something Eleanor expected me to keep. It was something she expected us to continue. The bedroom drawer had not become empty after all. It had become the front door to a tradition that could outlive every one of us. A year passed more quietly than I ever imagined it could. The house remained where it had always stood, though Laura and I made a few practical changes. My workshop became a place where Ben and Emma learned to measure twice before cutting once. The old Coast Guard toolbox still rested beneath the window. Eleanor's apron still hung behind the pantry door. Her favorite teacup still waited beside the kettle, not because I expected her to return, but because gratitude sometimes deserves a place as permanent as grief. The walnut keepsake box never disappeared into a closet. It stayed on the bedroom dresser beneath our anniversary photograph, no longer hidden, no longer locked away. It was waiting. Exactly 1 year after we discovered Eleanor's final gift, our family gathered again. Just as she had hoped. Ben had grown nearly 4 inches taller. Emma now carried a notebook wherever she went, filling its pages with family stories before anyone else could forget them. Laura arrived carrying fresh white lilies from the same garden center where her mother had bought flowers every anniversary for more than 3 decades. Before lunch, we walked together into the bedroom. No one needed instructions. The ritual already belonged to all of us. I opened the walnut keepsake box and carefully untied the faded blue ribbon around the leather portfolio. Inside rested 46 anniversary letters written by Eleanor. The 47th page was still blank. I picked up Eleanor's old fountain pen and looked around the room. I think your grandmother left this page empty because she knew none of us could write it alone. Laura smiled through tears. So, we write it together. I nodded. I began with 4 simple words. Dear Eleanor. The rest came naturally. I told her Ben had inherited my patience with wood and tools. I told her Emma had inherited her gift for noticing the little things everyone else overlooked. I thanked her for raising a daughter whose quiet strength had carried our family through its hardest season. I admitted there were still mornings when I reached across the bed before remembering she wasn't there. But I also admitted something else. For the first time since losing her, the house no longer felt empty. Because everywhere I looked, I could see pieces of her living inside the people she loved. When I finished, I passed the pen to Laura. She added her own letter. Ben wrote a short paragraph about building birdhouses with Grandpa. Emma filled nearly an entire page describing the day she heard Grandma's recorded voice and realized love could outlive goodbye. We placed the new letters inside the portfolio beside the original 46. The collection had grown. Not because someone had preserved the past, because another generation had chosen to continue it. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I opened the familiar bedroom drawer one last time. Instead of leaving it empty, I placed a single handwritten envelope inside. Across the front I wrote, "Next anniversary, open together." Then I gently closed the drawer. 46 years earlier, Eleanor had started a tradition with one small gift. Now that tradition no longer belonged to either of us. It belonged to every generation that would choose love over convenience, memories over possessions, and time together over everything else. I finally understood what Harold meant when he said Eleanor had purchased one last anniversary gift. She had. It simply wasn't something anyone could wear. It wasn't something anyone could sell. And it certainly wasn't something that could ever be lost. Her final gift was a family that would keep choosing one another long after she was gone. Perhaps that's the most valuable inheritance any of us can leave behind. Not wealth, not property, not perfect memories, but a tradition so full of love that future generations willingly become its caretakers. And perhaps that's why the drawer was empty that first anniversary without Eleanor. It had never been waiting for another gift. It had been waiting for the family to become one. If Eleanor and Samuel's story touched your heart today, we'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments a family tradition, a memory, or a lesson from someone you miss. Your story may become the encouragement another viewer needs today. If you enjoy heartfelt stories about family, dignity, quiet courage, and the enduring power of love, please consider subscribing to Quiet Valor Stories and joining our growing community. We have many more journeys waiting to share with you. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Wherever you are, may your home be filled with peace, your heart with hope, and your family with moments that become treasured memories for generations to come. Until next time, take good care of yourself and of each other.